This is Bodhi Tree Social, and in today's video I'm going to talk to you guys about how to navigate a world and environment of high stimulation, and specifically how to navigate the reactive patterns that arise when we are in an environment of intense stimulation. There's a lot happening, right? And so there's a lot of reactivity that can arise unconsciously in our body and in our system. Different reactive patterns will arise. Like right now, for example, I'm sure you can hear the noise in the background walking on a pretty busy road, right? There's a lot of people, a lot of cars and whatnot. And so I'll notice as I walk, as I navigate, different patterns and reactions will arise, right? Like when there's a lot of cars going by, the noise can create some irritation, for instance. When I walk by people, I notice there's a heightened vigilance, greater awareness, right? I also need to be more aware as I walk, as traffic's going by. So there's certain things just happening and reactions arising unconsciously. I'm not consciously conjuring these things up, but it's just happening. And so how do we deal with these reactive patterns as they arise, as they happen? That's what I'm going to go into in this video. So, as we navigate life, as we navigate this world, different feelings, sensations, thoughts, emotions continuously arise in our experience, right? And unless you are completely enlightened, you are going to be, to a degree, tossed about by these reactions as they happen. You're going to be, in a sense, controlled or at least affected by them. So it's not about getting rid of these reactions or these reactive patterns. I don't personally believe that that's possible. I don't think you can actually just completely get rid of them, right? And a lot of them are actually useful. For instance, if you're walking around near cars, like I was just walking around and there's a lot of traffic, if a car is coming towards you, you want that reactive pattern of like, oh shit, I need to jump out of the way, I need to get out of the way, danger. If you just had no reactivity whatsoever, you probably wouldn't live very long. So a part of this is wired into our biology for survival. But aside from that, a lot of these reactive patterns will create inner turbulence or irritation that's actually not necessary and can actually be very draining, creates a lot of stress, and creates a cascade of negative repercussions. So I really want to get into how to transcend the negative repercussions that arise from these different reactive patterns. And so oftentimes, say for instance, you're navigating an environment, there's a lot of noise happening, a lot of activity, a lot of different people around, a lot of strangers, right? And you'll feel in your nervous system, you're starting to become somewhat agitated, somewhat irritated. And then what this can turn into is you thinking thoughts like, oh, fuck this, like starting to get angry, pissed off, right? And then this story in your mind, like, God, I hate society, this is so annoying, so much noise, like, you know, fuck these people, God, I just want to get away from it all. And then the thoughts start to feed that irritation within you, that reactivity. And all of a sudden, it builds and builds and builds until you feel exceptionally stressed out, irritated, and you start to go into this downward spiral. Now, instead of doing that, instead of taking that route, there is the option, there is the opportunity to simply acknowledge the reaction as it arises. So in the moment, as in your body, you're feeling a certain reactive pattern. Oh, okay, I feel what the mind might call irritation, a little tension. Okay, and you notice it, and you don't start to generate a story around it, but you simply acknowledge the visceral sensation. And you accept it fully. You acknowledge and accept the visceral sensation. Oh, I see this. Okay, what I might describe as irritation is arising in my body. What I might call tension is happening in my chest and in my throat. Oh, I'm noticing these thoughts, like thoughts of anger or judgment or criticism or whatever it is. Just noticing that, and you acknowledge it. You can even think this, in your mind, or you can speak it out auditorily, right? And you can say, oh, I see this happening. Okay. Oh, I feel a little bit of tension in my body. I feel a little bit of irritability arising. And whatever it is, whatever the feeling or the emotion arising, you acknowledge it. And this is the key. You have to fully accept and embrace it. And then when you do this, you actually can enter, you could say, into a different timeline, into a different potentiality where you're no longer tossed about and controlled by this cascade of unconscious reactions and reactive patterns that feed on themselves and can create this downward spiral. So, even though we are, in a sense, controlled or at least influenced by unconscious reactive patterns, and that's just part of being human, even though that's the case, we never want to allow external stimulus to completely dictate our internal state. So, a great example of this is if you are interacting with other people. Naturally, as human beings, we look for validation from the social group. But of course, we're not always going to get validation, and this isn't a personal thing. This is something that it just happens. It's a part of life because there are so many variables involved in social interactions. Someone could just be in a bad mood and you're like, hey, I have this awesome story to share with you, and they're like, I don't care, your story sucks. Is that personal? Does that have anything to do with you? Absolutely not. Yet we can feel as if it is personal because we put so much investment into our social standing. It's very important as a human being to belong to a social group, to have a sense of belonging, and to avoid being rejected or ostracized. It's tied into our survival as human beings. So we're always seeking validation, and we're seeking to have our reality affirmed, and when we don't receive that, it can be painful. The problem with this, though, is if you are completely controlled by people's reaction to you, you're gonna have a really, really shitty experience, because a lot of time you're not gonna get the reaction that you're looking for. That's the problem. So you can't allow your internal state to be completely dictated by people's response to you. So how do you overcome this? Well, first you need to acknowledge that their response actually is not personal. It doesn't really so much have to do with you as it does have to do with them and the state that they're in, and just how they are subjectively interpreting and experiencing what is happening. Another way to do this is essentially to detach yourself from the feedback or the response that you're getting by being very, very present, and as I said before, just noticing the reactive patterns. So you can step out of this space of being completely controlled by the stimulus that you're receiving, the responses you're receiving from the environment. You can step back from that and recognize that you are, in essence, the awareness or the observer having the experience. You're just the one simply witnessing the stimulus happening, and it has no inherent meaning. If someone responds to your story and they're like, that was the most amazing story I've ever heard in my life, or they're like, that was the dumbest thing I've ever heard, please leave. Neither one of those has any inherent meaning. Obviously, it's different. Obviously, the response, is gonna affect you in some capacity. One is favorable, one is unfavorable. I'm not telling you to be delusional and be like, everybody loves me and loves everything I have to share, even when people are like, you suck, fuck you. Obviously, you're not gonna go to that extreme, but you can detach yourself to the degree that you're not completely controlled by people's response to you. And this is the freedom, this is the power that comes in cultivating this greater degree of self-awareness. And as you cultivate that, you can just notice the reaction as it's happening. You can notice the response. You can notice how different environments affect you. Now, I'm by the ocean, I'm on the beach, and I can notice, wow, this environment affects me differently than when I was walking around by the traffic and all the noise and the stimulation, all the different people walking by it. I'm like, da, da, da. I can notice the reactions happening, and then here, it's a different vibe, it's a different feeling. Is one necessarily better, worse than the other? Not unless you add that meaning. You know, the person saying your story sucks or the person saying your story is amazing, neither one is necessarily better than the other unless you add the meaning. This is key. Everything is just like a neutral prop. Everything in a sense is neutral feedback. Yes, still take feedback, but take it with a grain of salt. Take critical feedback, take it into consideration, but some people might just hate for the sake of hating because they don't like their lives, you know? So none of this is actually personal. None of it is personal. We're all just witnessing what is happening, and then we add meaning to that. And we either allow these reactive patterns to take us over, or we step back and we just notice it and we accept it and we embrace it. We say, this is where I'm at. Every reaction, every feeling, everything is okay. It's accepted, it's embraced. And from that foundation, you can choose with your free will, you can consciously choose how you move forward and how you choose to navigate that situation. But you gotta step back, take a deep breath, notice it as it's happening. Notice how different environments affect you. Yes, ideally put yourself in the more peaceful, calm, serene environments if you can. It's not always an option, so you need to learn how to navigate even the more intense or stimulating environments. And this is the true test of your character. This is the true test of your consciousness, so to speak, your state of being. How far have you come on the journey of being able to self-generate your own state of being, of being unwavering, of being solid and centered within yourself? The test is not me sitting out on the beach by the ocean and I'm like, wow, I feel really peaceful here. No, it's me going into the really intense, chaotic environments with a lot of people around and being like, boom, I'm solid in myself. Bam, I'm centered. My state, yeah, I might have different reactions, but I can stay centered in myself even as these reactive patterns occur. I can, boom, drop into my center and I can accept and I can embrace it, and therefore I can allow it to move through me. And I don't resist it, and then all of a sudden, once you start resisting it, you go down this downward spiral and it takes you over. So this is the key. This is the absolute key. Noticing the reactive patterns as they rise, fully accepting them, and then consciously deciding, this is how I'm moving forward in a calm, centered state. I'm accepting it. I'm embracing it. I am the master of my own reality. I am the master of my own state of being. I am the boss of my life. And I choose that and I set that intention. I embrace and accept the reactions as they occur, and then I, boom, set my intention to navigate and move forward in the way that I so choose. And this is the power that you have as a human being when you develop the self-awareness. And you're no longer tossed about like this ocean. You're no longer tossed about on the waves of the ocean like, this person likes me and this person doesn't. Oh, this environment's nice and this one is more harsh. Oh, this is good, this is bad. And it's just this roller coaster and you're getting tossed about. No, you're, boom, you're centered. Boom. You have that personal gravity of your intention of how to live this life, of how to be within this reality, being in the world but not of it, meaning you're not completely controlled by what's happening out here. And that is the message of this video. That's what I like to communicate to you. So thank you so much for tuning in. Again, this has been Bodhi with Bodhi Tree Social. Remember, as always, live this life from a peak experience, and we will talk again very soon. Much love, peace be with each and every one of you.